Hi, my name is Jerome II. I am 21-year-old environmental justice activist and a member of the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council. And I'm incredibly excited to be here today to speak more about the rights of nature and young people and representing North America in this talk today. I want to start out just by giving context to the moment that we're in right now. Around the world, we're seeing ravaging wildfires and increasing floods. And in North America, especially, we're seeing over 1/3 of Americans over the past year have directly experienced natural disaster. And that is drastically changing the landscape of both policy and personal understanding of what the climate crisis means to families and communities. And being a member of the White House Council, we have a responsibility to respond to those events, respond to the ravaging of communities and say, what can we do about it? And what can we do to progress environmental justice on a pragmatic and local scale? And I've been a part of this council for the past 2 years, and we've worked to basically make over 400, 500 recommendations to the Biden administration. And they've been very targeted within communities like Kern County, California, like South Shore, Chicago, like the Ninth Ward in Louisiana that doesn't have access to infrastructure development to be safe from further natural disasters. We're really targeted on making sure that communities have tree equity and everything that encompasses environmental justice and tackling the climate crisis. And I think that's really important to talk about now is thinking about how I got from a space of being a young person, wanting to get involved in the environmental movement, but not knowing how, and just having the faith and understanding that if I keep pushing, if I keep organizing, and if I just put my all into this really critical issue, then I can say I've done all I can, and my generation can stand alongside me, and I can stand alongside my generation, and let's continue to fight for justice. And in talking about the rights of nature and talking about faith, that is completely intersectional because growing up, Gen Z has been exposed in the 21st century to 9/11, to the 2008 financial crisis, to really traumatic events, but also a really positive event, which was social media, in that we're able to see other people's perspectives. And growing up, being on the internet, seeing people from Bangladesh, people from China, people from South Korea, like all these different countries and communities, understanding how they perceive faith, how they perceive the future, and how their relationship with the environment is totally different than what our hometown might look like. That allows us to have a sort of empathy that wasn't there for past generations. This a deeper connection with the world around us, whether that's through a religion or through just having faith and a connectedness with the world around you. That is a sort of rebellion in a sense, because we're able to root ourselves in our beliefs and are able to fight morally and have a sense of moral clarity against the corporations and governments which aren't taking climate action seriously and are putting money above morals. And that is something that has kind of shifted in the last few years, is that what we've seen is that communities all across the world are creating interfaith organizations, which are using the power of church and localized organizing to really progress policy and progress communities. One example we've seen of that is in Georgia. Well, one of the churches that worked on where Martin Luther King used to preach is now working to progress environmental justice and rebuilding a bridge that would collapse due to earthquakes and exposure to natural disasters. And also in North Carolina, there's massive exposure to petrochemical plants and also animal farming. And from the work of organizations that was led by faith communities, we're able to adequately fight back against them and hold our ground. And in the next 5 to 6 years, in which the IPCC report says that this is the amount of time before we start reaching critical tipping points, we're seeing more and more people organize. And in the past month, what we've seen within the White House is that we've been developing a lot of recommendations and policy advisory statements stating how we should be better supporting young people, schools, and community centers, churches, all these spaces for people to gather in, for them to take refuge not only, but to be able to come together and understand and kind of trade and think about different perspectives in their life, because that's the biggest way in which we're able to get involved in activism. And with my organization, Wake Up, our main motto is transitioning people from apathy to awareness to impact. And that awareness piece comes from that awakened or that first touchstone in which we're able to connect with other people. One example that's happening right now in which people are rising up and we can take inspiration from is the carbon management working group that the White House is working on now, in which communities are rising up against fossil fuel projects, which are trying to build even more factories in their homes to put the carbon that they emitted into the land back into the ground under their homes in a way that could leak back up through the ground, up through the soil, and continue to emit communities and make it even more potent for their livelihoods. And one thing that we've seen is that we have in the past 2 weeks sent over 14 recommendations directly to President Biden and the Vice President, saying this is why it shouldn't go forward. And we've seen over 50% of those recommendations actually get implemented. And it shows that from us organizing in our homes and us just striking from school and us organizing in our churches, we've been able to massively impact change. The only reason we have a White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council is because of decades of work and organizing that we've done and that we're going to have to continue to do for us to reach real climate action. So my one takeaway for anyone listening to this is to get involved, to organize and to volunteer with organizations that are doing amazing work, and to keep on pushing for a safe and livable future. Thank you for listening to this talk.